when it hit 70 million, and he retracted it and reset it. Not being the Monterey crowd, they were like, "Boo! Nay! No good! No good!" it was really
a polite.
It was the
heckle,
most
right?
polite heckle you could come across. Welcome to our podcast. It's called Making Speed, Season 1, Episode 1. This is our first episode. Very exciting.
We're newbies.
We are. We don't know what we're doing. I'm Noah Alexander.
I'm Charles Cruz.
We're here to talk about the industry, classic car studio, what we did on TV, anything coming up, upcoming shows, crazy builds. We're going to have some cool interviews coming up. And
some
pretty
strange
much
characters coming in to talk to us.
We've got strange characters that'll be joining us. And, it should be good. So tune in. You can find us on YouTube right now. In the future, you'll be able to find us on iTunes and Spotify as well after our producer figures it out. This is our producer, Jace. He's in the background. You may or may not be able to see him, and you can't hear him.
And we also have an awkward guy in the corner kind of staring at us, too.
We also do.
That's Tim.
You can't see him. He is a friendly, bearded man. You might meet him in an alley or a park late at night. He's all over the place. So we're basically ready to roll. So let's do this.
All right. What's first on the agenda here?
Yeah, first on the agenda, we're going to talk about the Porsche fail out at Monterey. I don't know if anybody's familiar with that, but I wasn't tuned in. I didn't watch it in person, but I did see the sister car of this car. It's technically not really a Porsche, but it was built by Mr. Porsche himself before the brand was in existence. Many headlines called it the Nazi car, which isn't entirely incorrect. It's pretty much a Nazi car.
Well,
anyway.
we've seen weird things like this happen before at auctions, but it's never this kind of money, right? It's always like you're arguing over a couple $1,000s, like the auctioneer got ahead of you or whatever happened. But this one,
this was pretty strange.
It's crazy.
I read a couple articles about it. I saw a headline. It ran across. I think it was at night, and I got a notification on my phone. I started reading it. I was like, oh, that kind of sounds a little shady. But, yeah, like Charles is saying, we've seen this stuff happen at auctions. There's often a disconnect between the auctioneer and the numbers on the screen, and then there's kind of a correction that's made. So the numbers on the screen will sometimes, it's all being manually input, so the numbers on the screen will sometimes tick up faster, or
there's alcohol involved.
Or there's, it's hard. It's very confusing. But, by design, auctions are meant to be, I think, slightly confusing and exciting. So that's how they get a lot of those.
That's how you pay the price. I mean, the price goes up, right? I mean, that's just the way it is. But this guy. So what do you think happened? I mean, come on.
Well,
it's crazy.
I don't know. The auctioneer either. It was a genuine thing that happened, and he didn't really mean to do it because he played it off. So it hit 70. Well, the car in all the headlines leading up to the sale, they kept saying it was a $20 million car. And that was kind of, I guess that was the auction estimate, which is where the $20 million came from. So the bid opened, that being said, the bid opened at $30 million, or what sounded like $30 million. So that being said, it said 30 million on the screen, but he had a British accent. So you could say 13 million.
Yeah.
And
that's where the buyer thought it was, right? 13.
Everybody thought, well, here's the weird thing. Yeah. So it starts at 13 million or 30 million. It says everybody thinks it's at 30 million, 30 million, blah, blah, blah. And so it starts going up, and it's a casual, kind of slow, boring auction, the British style of auctioneering, which is not that fun. But it went, so on the screen it goes 30, 40, 50, 60, and then 70 million.
Right.
And then once it gets to 70 million, he realizes either it was run up to 70 million, but it didn't really seem like that. But there's some weird, but either it was run up to 70 million, or he said 17 million, because when it gets to 70 million, he's like, ladies and gentlemen, I said 17 million.
Yeah.
Maybe it's because of my accent, but 17 million sounds like 70 million, kind of. And 15 million sounds like 50 million.
Right.
And then the other thing on the audio track is that the bids go up in $500,000 increments, which
Right.
would make sense to go from 13 million
Yeah.
to 17 million.
Right.
So it's a little weird. And as Charles is saying, like we see this at normal auctions.
Yeah, you do. Yeah, you see it. I mean, or there's times where they're running up a number. You know, they're trying to get to a certain place and it's not going. You know, so they'll back off, or they'll retract it. You know, they'll kind of come back down. So there's a lot of things that happen.
Yeah.
You got to just pay attention if you're sitting out there in the audience. First of all, you got to make sure you're bidding on the right car too, because I've seen that happen where there's a car, you know, it's not even on the block anymore and you're still bidding on it, but there's a new one up in front of the podium and people even get confused there. So like you said, people's adrenaline's going. It's exciting. You can make mistakes. Maybe not so much at one of those auctions like, you know, where it's a British style auction. But at other ones I've been to, it is exciting, and you can make a mistake for sure.
Yeah. So it was pretty interesting because by the time when they got to 70 million, as soon as it opened at what people thought was 30 million, there's like lots of cheering because they didn't expect it to do that,
Right,
of course.
yeah.
Then by the time it got to 70 million, that would have almost doubled the Ferrari, which did 41 or 42 million, somewhere in the low 40 millions. I don't know when that was last year.
Right.
So. Yeah, but the funniest part for me is when it hit 70 million and he retracted it and reset it. Not being the Monterey crowd, they were like, "Boo! Nay! No good! No good!" it was
and
really
a polite. Kind
it was
of a
the
heckle,
most
right?
polite heckle you could come across. I was thinking, wow, all right.
Yeah.
And people got up and they kind of started to leave, and you could hear, you know, that kind of a murmur went through the crowd. And
so the outcome was what happened?
The outcome was it did not sell because
Right.
he reset it to what it should have been at, and it did not sell. So it really, I don't think that they would have tried. It doesn't make sense for them to run the bid to 70 million without having.
Nobody's gonna really go that far on the car anyway.
So I think that, you know, the honest, you know, excuse was that you couldn't really understand what he was saying.
Right.
And then it matched up with a number on the screen, which,
Yeah.
you know, 13 million sounds like 30 million. So it obviously was like a technical error, but
Right.
it's kind of weird. Do you think that car will be, I mean, what happens to the car now?
Well, it definitely kind of, I think it kind of hurts the value of it a little bit.
I think it hurts the value as well. Where
Yeah.
do you sell that?
I don't know. Maybe it's got to go across the pond.
Across the pond?
Over there.
Yeah, it hurts the value of the car
Yeah.
tremendously. My guess is that it would sell privately if it would sell at all after that.
Yeah, I'd hate to be the owner of that car because it's such a weird deal and it's being talked about so much. Like, I don't know. I think the value is really hurt.
Badly.
Yeah, it is for sure.
I don't know how that was probably the auction to sell it at.
Yeah.
Or another RM auction. And they do a lot of international auctions as well, but you
Right.
can't just, it's such a unique
It's a small audience.
car.
Let's face it. I mean, right? The
you
people
have
that
to,
the
you
people
have
that
to
are
lo-
there,
right. So
Yeah.
you're saying you have to A, love Porsches, and B,
have stupid amounts of money.
and C, be a Nazi sympathizer. Okay,
I don't know if I go that
that's
far.
not necessarily
I wouldn't
so.
go that far.
But in buying a car and buying this car, not being a Nazi sympathizer, you definitely have to be able to tell people like, I'm not into listen. I'm not a Nazi. I just thought it was a cool car.
Thought
It was
a
one of
great
three.
car. Right.
So the one they had at the Peterson that was like this car was, I think this car was in better condition than the one at the Peterson, because
Yeah.
the one at the Peterson, they hid it from the Allies, and then the Allies found it and they cut the roof off and they were like joyriding around.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so that
So
was,
it's got some history.
and
That's
one
kinda
is
cool.
destroyed or missing, or I'm not really sure, but I don't know. It's an interesting story, and of course, yeah, I think the most interesting fact is like, where do you sell it now? So, who knows?
You got to wait a few years.
You got to
Kinda
wait a few years.
Let the dust settle.
You absolutely have to wait a few years and let the dust settle. So, one of the other things we're going to kind of run through is the car show season. We're kind of at the end of the outdoor car show season. We try to make it out to a few shows every year. You know, there's some people that are, God bless them, so committed. They go to everyone.
Yeah. We just, it's tough for us to make it out of the shop and get to those shows as much as we'd like to hit all of them that we, all the Good Guys events or Street Rod Nationals, that kind of stuff. It's just almost impossible. We've got constant projects going on here and just can't get away.
It's hard to leave.
It is.
I don't know why we want to leave, but
we
it's
like
hard.
going. We love going to car shows, meeting all the fans and
it's great.
showing off the cars.
Yeah.
It's good.
I mean,
and looking at all, talking to all of our industry friends. It's a great time. But what, 2 or 3 a year? That's about all we can get.
That's all we can do. And there's some road warriors out there that hit all of these shows. So we do have SEMA coming up, which is going to be exciting.
Yeah, 2 cars going. Well, a car and a truck going.
Car and a truck. We have our '67 C10
and a '55 Chevy.
Yeah, it's gonna be great. So if you're out at SEMA, please come say hi to us. We'll be there. We every year it's kind of you've got the hustle kind of going up to the show and getting the cars out the door. Then you have to get there pretty early. So
get everything set up.
Yeah.
So I mean, I think we're running pretty much on schedule with the 2 SEMA builds.
Yeah.
Probably not going to have to work much overtime, which is nice. I know there's a lot of guys out there that, it's all hands on deck and they're working 12, 14 hours a day. Luckily, we don't have that going on this year. So
yeah, our SEMA builds aren't usually built for SEMA. They're built for a customer,
right?
And then finished around the time of SEMA. So we don't have to scramble to get stuff done.
Yeah. But they look great. If you go
Yeah.
on our website, you can see some photos of the builds going on. They're always updated too with new photos.
Yeah, and also check out the YouTube page because we've got video of both of those vehicles coming together, and the original renderings are online as well. So you can see we usually stick pretty close to those original renderings as well.
Yeah, there's minor changes here and there, but overall, you'll get the picture of the build.
It's good to have a plan in place that the customer approves of and then execute that plan rather than go on some crazy...
much as we'd like to, right? It's fun to go crazy and get creative, but
it's fun. Hopefully that's already built into the rendering,
right.
and then we just go out and make that happen, because otherwise, you're building something possibly the customer doesn't want or doesn't want to pay for. I know that's an issue in the industry. People want people want something, and I think the builders get another idea in their head. So we like to use a blueprint set and make it go from there.
Yeah,
so.
Especially for the customers that are out of town, which is a majority of our customers. They want to be able to know what they're going to get in the end, you know, and I would too.
Yeah.
It's a lot of money that it takes to build one of these vehicles, and, at the end you want to be able to get in it and have everything that you asked for.
Yeah, I think there's too many stories out there where people sent a car away and got something back, and
it's not even the right color sometimes,
It's totally different. And the comments usually say, I'm like, I think the builder got a little carried away and built the car that he wanted to build, and I don't know what I've got this now. It's nice, but
I could see that happening though. I mean, because we're passionate about what we like.
It's easy to it's too easy to happen, and
So you got to. It's a cool collaboration between what the owners of the car want, what our style is, and what all the guys that are involved in the project. It's a collaboration of all those ideas, and that's what's really cool about the full builds. I think when they're all done, it kind of showcases everybody at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely. And as long as that collective effort happens at the beginning of the build, people are happy at the end. So
exactly.
But all of our builds going to SEMA use BASF paint, so it's kind of usually the uniting factor. We switched over to Glazert a few years ago.
Yeah, it's been about 3 years now.
I've been very happy with the paint that we're using. They sent out I think you'd agree we generally push those products in a little bit of a different direction.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, most of the paints that are made nowadays, they're for the collision repair industry.
Right.
So they're made for like 2 coats of clear, only so much primer, all that stuff. But in all reality, to be up to the today's standards in our industry, you got to really push the products. You got to put 5 coats of clear on this stuff, and a lot of paint companies, I'll say, they don't like that because you're essentially abusing the products. But with Glazert, they've tested it. They know we can do that with it, and it's proven. We've got cars that have been painted for years, and we don't have any issues.
Well, I think one of the cool things is they sent out their engineer who engineered a lot of those products.
Yeah.
And actually, we kind of said, we showed them here are the products we're using.
Right.
And here's how we're using them. And he showed us, in a way that's outside of the way they were like tactically engineered to be used.
Right.
He's like, okay, we can do that, but here's what you need to do to make the clear work like that, and here are the steps you need to follow. Which I thought was
and we actually created our own classic car studio like set of procedures.
Right.
So we can kind of consistently have the same product. And we know what the outcome's going to be. Even 2 and 3 years, 5 years down the road, it's going to look great.
And I think that's an important thing because if you're not doing it
as with all the parts that we use, parts or products, we try to stick with companies we know that are going to stand behind it and also deliver a good product from the very beginning, right?
Yeah, and paint's a risky area because you don't want to. I mean, if you buy a different starter or
some of the other stuff, if you have a failure, right?
Yeah.
It's a matter of maybe a day's worth of work. You have to swap something out. But if you have a paint failure, that could be months.
It's bad, and the build up to the failure is huge. So it's kind of a big blow because how many hours are we putting into the average, into body work on a car?
Yeah, I mean, by the time a car is body worked, blocked, and painted and buffed, it's 700 hours, 800 hours or more, and to redo that is just crazy.
So you got to have a paint company you love and trust, and it's got to work because all that's going towards that good looking paint job.
Well, and that's another thing too that we want to do on this podcast is bring in guys like Hans, that was the chemist from Glazred, or some of these industry people, whether they work in the industry or they sell products, and we can let all the listeners get to know kind of those guys and what they're all about too.
Yeah, because I feel like as a semi industry insider, people like they kind of know how some of the stuff is done. They might work in the industry but not do this type of work exactly. Maybe they work in the collision industry. So it's nice. I think it's really interesting when people they kind of have this big like aha moment when they can say, oh, that's how that's done. Oh, I get it, because they kind of know how they almost know how it's done, but they don't know exactly. Or maybe they do and they have one way they're doing it, but it's kind of I think it's enlightening to learn a different way about things as well. So.
Or just how certain things were developed. I think it's kind of interesting, even for guys that have been using the stuff for a long time, to know the process of development for what we use every day in these buildings. So it's pretty cool.
Sure. So we've got those 2 builds going out to SEMA, and like I said, make sure to hit us up. It's always you have to get there so early. I think we've done it enough times now. Initially, it's stressful because there's a bunch of different doors. You don't know where to get in. You don't know where to unload.
Right. How to get out for the SEMA Ignited.
How to get out. Yeah. There's
parade.
This,
I mean, that is like
it's a bunch
that's
of
nerve-wracking in itself because you've got hundreds and hundreds of very expensive cars all trying to get out of SEMA at the same time. It's really crazy if you think about it, but somehow they managed to all get out and get it through the parade and no accidents happen.
It works. Amazing. It works pretty well every year. Yeah, and initially in the back of my head, I'm thinking, I hope the battery hasn't died somehow, or we didn't leave the key on, or this thing's going to start. And if it didn't, it's not the end of the world, obviously. But I think everybody wants to make the SEMA parade and not overheat sitting in traffic.
Well, and that's the one chance for the public to see all these cars, because it's an industry show. So all the people that are lined up, it's really cool. It's people that love either, they follow certain builders or they watch, TV shows, all that stuff, and they can actually get a chance to be up close and personal with all those builders and cars. And I think that's a great opportunity.
Oh, people go crazy. It looks like a Super Bowl parade or something like that. There's the enthusiasm is overwhelming. The one thing I wish they'd really do is almost make, with SEMA now, it started off as kind of a small, boring little trade show, and it's grown and grown, and it's insane now. So a lot of people go that aren't necessarily in the industry, which I think is a good thing.
Right.
But I'd almost wish they would make like Friday, like everybody day, just because like I don't.
Well, we really need our industry days where we can go through
absolutely
and actually do the business that we're there to do, right?
Yeah.
And then, like you said, on Friday, let the public come in, let them see everything. It would help out the people that are paying for those booths too, because the public can come in and see all the new products. I think it would be a great like scenario. It would be a good fix to what's going on because, in the past few years, SEMA's getting so out of control. It's almost like it's just a giant car show.
Right.
If you're there to really do business, it's very tough.
Yeah, it's hard.
Yeah.
And I know they've had a lot of concerns about, passes being, kind of fraud with the passes and people selling them on Craigslist. But I think kind of opening it up to the general public on a certain day is going to basically cut that out.
Right.
Because there's a day where you can certainly go. And it can raise some more money. The other thing I think it does is it gets a lot of, kids in there that wouldn't necessarily be in there. And they have been pushing, some more and more trade show stuff every year.
Yeah.
But I think being, trade school stuff, excuse me. So you see more kids coming in, but I think,
they're doing the Young Guns competition,
right,
which is
really
great. It's cool, but also I think, like you said, on Fridays, maybe have all the trade schools in the area or whoever wants to come in, even from out of town. Like, let those kids walk through that place.
Just get exposure.
And get it, inspired.
Yeah.
Because even for us that we've been in this industry a long time, but when you walk through there, it's the end of the year, you're kind of feeling a little tired and wore out, but you know what? It kickstarts you for the next year.
It's inspirational, and every year there's somebody doing some new crazy thing, and you're like, wow, how'd they do that? Or I would have never thought about that. And then you can also see a lot of trends. So, but I think you got to show that to those kids and get them interested, and because I don't know, that's how it works. There's always a spark somewhere, no matter what your hobby is, or no matter what you're interested in. There's something that's where the light bulb goes off in your head.
Off,
like,
yeah. It could just be one car or one person that you talk to while you're there as a kid.
One ride in a car, or whatever it is.
But it's like that could carry you through a whole career.
Absolutely.
Which is it's really cool.
It works like that. So, very cool. We're excited to go. Hopefully we stay on our current pace with getting these cars done.
Yeah.
Get them out to.
We're doing good. Yeah. I mean, we luckily, with having everything in house, it makes a big difference. We're able to scatter a build, especially the SEMA builds throughout a couple departments. So we've got interior going on, paint work going on at the same time.
Right.
And that's a huge benefit for us and the customers.
So on the technology front, we are very open to new technology. Sometimes it works for us. Sometimes we try a new product line. It maybe doesn't work, and that could be maybe
the robot that I had that was sitting at my desk, and I wasn't here for a couple weeks.
Right.
It didn't work so well.
It didn't work so well.
I tried.
No. It seemed to kind of just look at the internet all day long, and it wasn't even doing your job. So it's kind of a bummer. But anyway, it's we try to integrate new stuff. And I think the more we do it, the more we work with the same companies.
Right.
Just because they're a known quantity and we know what they produce.
Even like the technology, like bringing in technology to this place, right?
Yeah.
You look at it, you go, oh, man, this piece of equipment's going to cost X amount of dollars.
Yeah.
What can we do with it? I mean, really, it's cool, but what is it really going to work? Is it going to make the products better that we make? Is it going to save time and money, right?
Yeah.
But then you look at like the ArcLight table that we got.
Yeah.
Right?
That thing's been killing it.
There's a pile of scrap over there. I mean, it looks like we've cut out 1,000 pieces.
We pretty much have.
Yeah.
And I was worried because it's like you look at these new products, and we're not a manufacturer.
Right.
So we were looking at the equipment, and we're like, that could really be cool for us. But we didn't really know exactly how we were using it, so we kind of took a flyer.
Yeah.
We knew it was great stuff, but we didn't know exactly. We kind of had an idea of stuff we'd use it for, because prior to having the ArcLight table, we cut stuff by hand.
Right.
And it works.
It works,
but
the quality's not exactly the same.
No.
And the process is a lot slower.
When we didn't cut it by hand, we'd send it out to a company.
So it was very expensive.
And they're busy. A lot of the companies that cut this type of stuff locally also do aerospace type work. They work for
they have big contracts they have to fill, right?
So we're like, hey, we've got this stuff. You want to cut it out? And they'd cut it, and that's fine. But the table really has been kind of an awesome thing for us because we used it a ton. For many things.
Yeah, and when we added the router to the other side of the table, that opened up other doors too.
Right.
Now we're starting to research cutting a little more plastic and wood with it, and there's just so many things that are out there, that we were kind of doing some of that stuff before, but it was all done by hand, and it was
Right.
very slow and tedious. So
Yeah, so if you haven't seen it on our, either pop up on Instagram or Facebook, we try to put photos of or videos of the table kind of doing its thing because, I don't know, it kind of looks cool and shoots a bunch of sparks.
Yeah.
But beyond that, yeah, it really, we have been using it quite a bit, and it's beyond the fact that it actually is cool and does great things. I like it because it makes it makes our employees more efficient, and at the end it makes it cheaper for the customer.
Well, not only that, but the one thing that it does that probably gets discounted somewhat or not even thought about a whole lot, but it increases like creativity, right?
Yeah.
And that's a really important thing in this industry. It's sometimes, yes, it's about speeding up the process and
Sure.
quality, that kind of stuff, but creativity is really important.
I think it opens up that door as well.
It does, yeah. Because there's things that we couldn't cut out by hand that we can cut out now on the table.
Oh yeah, not even close by
Right.
hand, or it would look terrible.
Yeah,
just 'cause,
exactly.
But yeah, Matt's been using it, and
Adding a lot of decorative aspects, or to a regular bracket, right?
Sure.
That normally would just be a solid plate, but he's
Right.
cutting little shapes into the plates
Yeah.
and all. It's really cool.
It looks good. The customers love it, and it's so much faster. And then once it's been done, it's in there. And if you
Right.
want to do the second
We
one,
can reproduce
then
it.
it's really, really, really inexpensive,
Yeah.
which is nice. So we're saving up those files, and
Even for simple things like exhaust hangers, battery trays,
Yeah.
all the stuff that we do on every build, right? So now we can reproduce that, and it kind of adds to our signature to every build that we do.
yeah. So it's a cool. So yeah, if you haven't seen it online, we have the table is. If you haven't seen it online, the table is 5 by 10, and we have half of it set up with the router,
Right.
and the other half is set up with the torch. So it's kind of cool. It's big enough where we haven't had to use the full 10 feet of it because we don't have
Right.
anything that's that long that we've needed to cut yet, or we haven't cut 100 little pieces.
Right.
So it's really easy to change over from the router to the torch, but we have it kind of set up so we could just slot. So basically, it'll just move down to the other end of the table,
Right.
and we could put the router on it, use it down there, then slide back down, and we can use the torch. So it's pretty cool if you've never checked out their website. They've got or just kind of looked at videos of
Right.
people using
They've
it.
got some really cool stuff.
It's good, and like I said, we're not in manufacturing, but we've been able to use it. It's made our, I feel like, really stepped
Well, and
up
it's opened our eyes up a little bit too
Yeah.
to other processes like
Mhm.
the 3D printing.
Yeah.
We don't have a huge printer, but
No.
we have been printing things in house and learning that process. And then now we're looking at lasers too, so
Sure.
we can do some more cool stuff for the interior shop.
Yeah,
with
and
that.
I think it did kind of help us check off one of those goals is to kind of keep pushing the technology forward in the shop and using
Right.
new products and equipment. And at the end of the year, it's usually when we buy new stuff and kind of invest in some new stuff. So we've had the ArcLight table for almost a year now. We're getting pretty close, and it's been great. So we are looking at getting a laser soon. So
Yeah.
we'll see. Maybe we can kind of talk about that, and you can check out some footage after we get that. We'll see. Hopefully, we can wrap out the year strong. Where we've got some extra spending cash for
Yeah.
a neat little laser. But it's been good. We've also, on top of our paint, we're kind of looking for another coating, a different way to do parts, something really durable. So we've started spraying some Cerakote, which has been neat.
Yeah, that's that when we decided to use that product, I was super excited because there's a lot of things that we traditionally would paint on a car,
Right.
They were in an area that it was gonna take some abuse, right?
Sure.
So you're always worried about like how is that paint gonna hold up?
Right.
And in my mind, we use some of the best products out there. But
yeah.
when it comes to like chemical resistance against brake fluid and things like that, automotive paint has its limits, right?
Oh yeah.
So like Cerakote was a no-brainer really because we can paint master cylinders.
Yeah.
We can paint things that would get super hot that would obviously bubble up
Sure.
with automotive finishes, and like there's so many different ways to incorporate that into a build. And I think it kind of turns it into something a little more modern too. You know, instead of using like a polished part because you're worried about chemical resistance or heat or something like that. Now we can actually code it. So
Yeah.
it was a great idea. You're starting to see more and more guys use it. Not so much in the automotive industry, but you're seeing it on firearms.
Lots of firearms.
Yeah. So, but I think to incorporate that into more of our builds, it's not only it's going to look better, but it's going to perform better for our customers.
Sure. And they have a couple different series or a few different series of product in a lot of different colors. So there's a lot of cool stuff you can do.
Yeah.
Some of it's air dry, and some of it you have to bake to
Right.
cure it.
Right.
But they're both very strong. And one of the it sprays on. How thin is it?
It's 1 mil.
1 mil.
Yeah, it's nothing when you think about it, but the stuff is so strong. And when you spray it, it's like you think you're spraying regular automotive paint, but
Right.
in all reality, it's not even anything close to that. Totally different concept. But it's very versatile, and you can spray it on plastic, you can spray it on metal, you can spray it on wood.
We've been testing it on some stuff, and it's on plastic it's crazy because it's incredibly durable.
Yeah,
on
and
plastic.
It adheres really
does.
well. Like
Yeah.
you would think, like, oh, you're spraying it over raw plastic, it's going to peel right off, and it doesn't.
Nope.
So.
And it's like painting. I mean, you can't have a greasy surface. It has to be a perfectly clean surface.
Right. Have to have a paint booth. I mean, really, to spray it safely, you want
Right.
to have a booth, fresh air system, all the regular equipment, which we already had all that. So it made sense for us to convert over and start using more of it.
So it should be good. We're excited about using it. And you can get, unlike paint, you can spill brake fluid on it.
Right.
You could spill gas on it. It doesn't haze. It won't get
Right.
weird. It's extremely durable.
And it's got UV protection built in too.
It does. So it's cool, and I'm sure people have seen mostly firearm stuff, but there've been some people doing engines in it.
Right.
And we're going to start using it in a lot of engine compartment components.
Yeah, we've got a build coming up that you're going to see quite a bit of Cerakote used on. And actually, one of our SEMA builds is going to have a fair amount of Cerakote. Actually, both SEMA builds have Cerakote on them. So
There you go.
yeah,
Yep.
pretty cool.
Wheels, engine compartment components.
Yep.
It's all good, but it's very hard and durable, and it's great. We're glad to put that feather in our cap for now. So
Yeah.
So in terms of cool new tech in the industry, nobody's talked about it a whole lot, but Tremec, who we put, if we're using a manual transmission in a car, most of the time it's a Tremec.
Right.
Usually using a TKO 500, 600,
right.
Or one of the 6-speed
T50,
models.
yeah. Yep.
T56 or T56 Magnum. So, but they have a transmission that they built, and it's in the Corvette now,
right.
but it's a transaxle, with a transaxle type setup in it. But they have they're also using, and I was just reading an article in the new GT500,
Right.
And it's not the exact same, but I believe where's the model number? Yeah, TR9070 DCT, but it's dual clutch transmission. So it's a manual transmission that's automatically shifted.
Right.
But when you do that, you can shift very, very fast. And
it's
that's
more like the European exotic type cars.
right. And it's taken a while for the American cars,
to have that technology.
It's been about, I don't know how far behind we are. I think we're 20 years behind.
At least. Right? Because, I mean, what the Ferrari, for instance, when was the first? Was that in the 355 when the first F1 transmission
the
was
355 had one. It
Right.
wasn't great. The 360 had one.
Right.
It was not great.
The 430,
The 430 was
that's
sharp.
when it really
yeah.
started to come around.
And that was technology that had trickled down from
Right.
Formula One
Right.
into their passenger cars, if you want to call them that. But that being said, it's cool. So I'm excited to see it here because I know that if it's here, then we can use it in builds.
We'll get our chance.
And
yeah.
people are going to go crazy.
They're going to
for
go
that.
nuts.
Because the other option that people, when people wanted a quote automatic transmission but wanted to shift it manually,
Yeah, but the delay is so slow. It's really not fun. It just allows you to hold out a gear a little bit
Right.
longer. It really isn't like
No.
an experience like,
But these things shift so fast. So upshifts, I think, are 80 milliseconds.
Yeah.
Which is like it's you
instant.
could never
You
ever
can't-
you could never ever shift that fast
Right.
as a human.
Right.
And I know there's a lot of pushback, and they're not putting manual transmissions in cars, and I it's kind of a bummer as well. I grew up driving manual transmissions.
But even look at Porsche, right?
Yeah.
everybody, when they had the Tiptronic that came out, everybody's
Right.
like, who cares? Give me a 6-speed, right?
Right.
But then when the PDK, right, came out, everybody was like, okay, now we're getting somewhere.
Right.
And I think with the new Corvettes, people are going to get those cars and see the difference, and also with the Corvette, I mean, if you look at the people that buy them, it's an older crowd typically,
Right.
and they're tired of shifting, I think. So
Right.
like Chevrolet listened, right? And they're like, let's come up with something that's like that'll attract the younger guys,
Sure.
and also make the older guys happy too. And that's like I think it's a perfect scenario.
Yeah, they're pretty incredible. The dual clutch transmissions are pretty incredible, and they're fast. I think people that generally have something bad to say about them probably haven't actually driven one.
Right.
Would you venture to say?
Or they complain about maintenance,
Yeah.
because it can be expensive to maintain.
Sure.
Some
Obviously
of the European cars,
Yeah.
especially
Right.
with their F1 transmissions, things like that. But, let's face it, most of these cars are not driven every day, and once you learn how to drive them, it's kind of more about like how do you take off. If you're sitting in traffic or if you're going to pull away from a stop sign, you kind of want to give it some gas and get into it rather than ride those clutches out in that thing. So
Right.
it's once you learn how to drive, that kind of transmission.
You just got to
it's
learn
good.
how to drive.
You got to learn how to
people.
drive. Come on.
So, yeah, it's pretty crazy. I can't wait to put one of those in. And after I read this article, I was like, oh, that's awesome. I'm glad they're doing that, because I was thinking, well, if they're doing it in the Corvette, they have to be.
I'm hoping one of our customers will bring in a Corvette, because I mean, I want to get first of all, I want to drive one.
Yeah.
Then I want to get my hands on one and like let's customize one, right?
It would be. I think they're screaming for that.
Yeah.
That type of modification.
I've already heard that there's somebody developing a twin turbo setup.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Doesn't take long.
It won't take long.
No,
It'll
be crazy.
It's going to be crazy.
It'll be a crazy thing. So, yeah, there you go. I hopefully I know like the first round of them is going to sell out. They'll be and then the dealers will have them all marked up.
Is there production numbers on that car yet? How many?
I don't know. I haven't heard. I
Yeah.
haven't. There may be. I haven't seen anything pop up, but I hope that it really does tap into a younger demographic that is like, hey, that'd be a cool car to own. Because at the end of the day, that car is only $60,000. Now,
Right.
maybe some people cringe if I say only $60,000, but that's a lot of car for $60,000.
When you're talking about that kind of market, without a doubt, and the styling. I mean, look at the styling of that car. You could say it looks like a Ferrari,
Right.
whatever you want to say, but
I mean,
it's an American sports car.
it is.
For less than $100,000, that has performance of a $250,000, $300,000 European sports car.
I mean, it's going to be crazy. So, it's the base price or the entry level, I think, was $59,900 or $59,500 or.
I don't know how they do that, honestly.
It sounded like with if you put a few of the fairly common desirable packages on top, then it's pretty easy to hit a car that's about mid 70s, high 70s.
Yeah,
but still,
that's a lot of car.
You don't have to
right?
do that,
No,
and
you don't have to. If you just want good performance, decent looks, and you don't need all the luxury, you can be in it in less than $70,000, I believe.
It's pretty crazy.
Having fun.
Yeah. Just another car payment, people. it's gonna be okay. But yeah, I think it's gonna be neat, and I don't know. Whenever something new comes out, people find a way to knock it. So
sure,
it seemed like the major. Yeah, looks like a Ferrari.
It does, and I think if you think about the whole headlight discussion with Corvettes versus like exposed headlights, opening headlights, people complained about that, and then now we're going to mid-engine. People aren't going to like that either. But when you're talking about getting in these cars and driving them, that experience is what like sells for the future, right?
Sure.
And Corvette, as much as I love Corvettes, we all know that the market was getting small on those.
Sure.
And they had to do what they had to do, and I think they did the right thing.
I think the average new car buyer is 51 years old or 53 years old.
For Corvettes or just
across
in general.
all new cars. So
Yeah.
it's apparently people that are our age aren't buying. I mean, I'm 29 and you're 30.
Yeah, I'm 30. Had the big 3-0 this year.
Yeah, I know. Wow, good luck, man.
I know.
On the other side now. So apparently the average new car buyer is actually across all new cars is not that young in the first place.
Right.
But I don't know. Hopefully some kids are inspired by that car.
If you watch YouTube, though, you would think that it's all 20 and 30-year-olds that are buying Lamborghinis and Ferraris, right?
I think the fact that I don't know, for me, like something about like when you're young, even if you're like working at a pizza place, just you're like a kid and whatever. I started working, I was 15 and a half. I was throwing pizza dough and making pizzas and everything. So when I started that, I think like I didn't want a car, like the car that I wanted wasn't a car that was like, what an expensive car in like the mid 90s would have been like a $200,000 car. Like that would have been like probably about a new Ferrari kind of money.
Countach.
Yeah. Right. Or a new Countach.
Oh wait, you're too young for that.
No, I think like the Lamborghinis were like $250,000 then, and now they're way more. But the car I wanted like a BMW M3 because it had beat up on all these other cars.
Yeah.
In the because you get the magazines every month, and it was like the best handling car at any price point. That's how they coined it, and it was true. But it was also $40,000, and in my head, I was like, I'll be able to buy a $40,000 car.
You can get there, right?
But you're also thinking like, well, that's also not going to be $40,000 by the time I can actually buy it. So I feel like that price point is kind of inspiring. So I'm glad they were able to keep it there, and it's also cool.
There's going to be guys in their 20s that can own one of those realistically.
I hope they do well with it. So the Supra is about the same price, I think.
Yeah, I got to tell you, I mean, I'm a super fan. I like all the older generation stuff, but maybe I have to drive one of the new ones, or I got to like get inside of it and feel it. But I'm not a big fan of the new ones.
What is it?
It's too small. It kind of looks like a Scion to me.
Right.
And that's okay, but it just, I guess I'm showing my age a little bit, but I don't really care for the styling of the new ones.
Why? What it is about the styling? It looks
the quarter glass.
Yeah.
Quarter glass looks like they took it out of a Scion and put it right in there.
Right.
They're a little stubby in the back. I don't know. They need to be a little bit of a bigger car, kind of like the older ones.
Sure. It doesn't. To me, it doesn't look exotic. The original one looked like it looked. I don't know. It didn't really. Maybe exotic is the wrong word, but it looked special. It looked cool, and it was
for the time in the 90s, right? When there was like the twin turbo ones rolling around,
and it was more of a GT car. It was more of like Grand Touring, kind of a little bit longer. So it's kind of interesting what they decided to. I think the price point on that car is both. Well, it's good because it's about the same price as the original car was,
which is crazy to think about.
And I don't even think the twin turbo, but I think the original, the NA car,
like a Mark IV, right?
Yeah, was that price.
Yeah.
So they kept it the same price. In my head, so there's a couple things like people are saying, oh, that car's too expensive or whatever, but keep in mind, it's
not too expensive.
It's not too expensive.
That's not the issue. I don't. The price is not an issue. I don't think performance is there too.
Yeah,
it's just aesthetics for me.
I think that's for me. Like aesthetically, it's too expensive. Like it just doesn't look.
Yeah.
I don't want to spend. I wouldn't want to. I don't know. I don't know about that. I almost wish they had just let the price. Built. I wish they'd built a car that would have been. I mean, it would have been like an $80,000 car, maybe. I haven't calculated the inflation.
What do you think about the NSX though? Like the NSX, kind of in the. It's kind of in the same market almost, but it's a lot more money.
It's a lot more money.
But it looks pretty cool.
I think I love the new NSX.
I do too.
I don't think it's been well received.
No.
I don't know why. But the original one was.
Yeah, and the original one didn't have great performance, really. It was just exotic looking.
Don't quote me, I'm probably wrong. I think it had 270 horsepower.
Yeah, it was very low.
Which is nothing.
Yeah.
But they were nice cars.
They drove well.
The view out, those cars, like sitting in that seat and looking out the front of one of those cars, it's really nice.
Yeah.
The way it's designed. It's and I'm talking about the original one. It's pretty incredible. But the new car, I don't know. I think that car is really, really cool, but not really well. It kind of just, I don't know.
Well, Yeah, it's kind of a weird thing. It seems like people are like passing right by that stuff.
Yeah.
And they're looking at like higher line cars. Like they're in a weird market right now.
It's like, I think has a base price of 157 or 160,000 or something. So it's a lot of money, obviously, but it's not Ferrari money.
Right.
It's not even like top Porsche money.
Nope.
So it's kind of positioned in an interesting place. Like, I think it's priced well for what it is, but it's not.
And how many have you seen, really? I haven't seen.
I've seen a couple
not
around.
Very many.
No.
Yeah.
Mostly driven by old ladies.
Right.
No, it's not true. But I don't know. I know no one ever talks about them.
No.
I've never driven one. I kind of like to drive one. I've watched a bunch of people review them, and they seem to like them. But yeah, they're kind of like it's like it wasn't crazy enough to really
to entice people to go out and just have to own it.
Now, one of the things that worth mentioning is with a lot of cars, they kind of it can take a while. Like it can take a while for stuff to catch on, which is not a desirable thing from a manufacturer's standpoint.
Right.
Like, you don't want to produce a car and have no one be like no one really kind of like, yeah, all right, whatever. But then, like, there's so many cars out there that after the fact people really like, they develop like a little cult following
after
around
the fact,
them.
right?
So, like, a good example, like the Ford GT.
Oh, I know, right?
Those didn't sell well.
No, they didn't.
They sat around in dealerships.
Yeah.
I think they were more than they were supposed to be, but they were like $150,000.
You know what the best example of a car like that would be?
Yeah.
Superbirds. People have told me that like Superbirds back in the 60s, everybody was like, what in the hell is this car with this big wing and this
Nobody
nose?
wanted to buy that car.
I was told that they sat around forever.
Yeah.
They were trying to give them away.
Right.
And now look at that car.
Right.
It's nuts.
So so maybe that'll happen with the current NSX.
Maybe.
Because it happens with, it takes a while, but then all of a sudden, I don't know if people realize they're cool cars or whatever the deal is, whatever happens. They're wild looking. They age well. They become a great value.
Well, I think aging well is something that really changes the later part of it, and I think that's why I look at the Supras, the Mark IVs. They aged really well.
Oh yeah.
And now they're what the twin turbo ones are like what $120,000 for a decent
pristine one.
Yeah.
Yeah. For a really nice one.
Crazy.
They keep, and they're going to keep. I don't see why they wouldn't just keep going up.
Right.
I mean, they'll be a little bit crazy.
Yeah.
Which is something we're going to talk about in our next podcast. We're going to kind of go through some future classics and talk about stuff we think is going to do well in the future for people. Maybe wouldn't be a bad car to own now, buy now, drive and have fun with. You can buy
something we talk about quite a bit.
We always talk about it. Where it's always kind of a common thread in conversation as well. And I think it's a pretty interesting topic. So just stuff you can buy now that's still reasonable. You could pay up. You could almost overpay just to buy the nicest one, and then be able to kind of drive it and enjoy it, but actually have some decent.
Not lose a bunch of money, but at least cover the cost of ownership. At least.
And then maybe some decent upside ahead of that. They say don't invest in cars, but it's fun to try.
Invest in fun.
Invest in fun. On that note, we're gonna sign off. That was Season 1, Episode 1, Making Speed. Charles Cruz, Noah Alexander, silent producer Jace, and Tim in the corner. Thank you.
Thank you.